What's going on, swim fans? Welcome to this special live broadcast. Today we're talking about how to swim faster, how to swim more efficiently, and we're going to really focus on breath control, breathing technique, and different ways that you can apply these skills both in the water and out of the water as well. We actually have a few guests that are going to join this live stream in just a few minutes. We have the CEO of AeroFit. We have a top-ranked swimmer also going to be joining us. We're going to ask him some questions and see how to really optimize breathing performance. So before we get into that, two things. First of all, make sure you let us know down below in the comments and in the live chat where you're joining us from. We have a global community at MySwimPro. If you guys are new here, we help swimmers take it to the next level. So if you want to swim faster and smarter than ever before, this is the place to do it. And I'm Coach Fares, and I'll help you every step of the way. So go ahead and let me know down below in the live chat where you guys are joining me from, global community. And before we bring our guests on, I want to do a little bit of an overview on swimming technique. We're going to watch some footage of myself doing freestyle and breaststroke. We're going to analyze the technique because I really believe that you can learn so much from not only breath control and breathing technique perspective, but also just overall swimming mechanics. When you can see someone else doing it and you can see what is going on from an analytical perspective, but also qualitatively just to see someone else swimming, you can learn a lot, and that's what we're going to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up some footage, and it's going to be very beautiful with some palm trees. Let's go ahead and roll it. So here we have some footage. This is some breaststroke. Then we're going to look at some freestyle swimming. And we're actually going to slow this down. So we're actually going to pause at different parts of the stroke and really identify what's happening on a stroke-by-stroke basis. Before we do that, though, I have this fun animation on the screen, and we have two swimmers. So on the top half of the screen, we have Bob, and on the lower half, we have Annie. Now, one thing that's important to note when we look at these swimmers, they're in animation. So some of the things that they're doing is actually absolutely perfect that we as humans, we can only aspire to do. You know, if you look at how still their body position is, you know, that's amazing. There's no up and down movement whatsoever. We as humans are not going to be that perfect, but when you look at the body position and you look at the head position, you look at where the eyes are looking, that's the foundation of the stroke. So we aspire to try and have that kind of a body position where we're basically flat through the water. If we lift our head up and we're not looking at the bottom of the pool, our hips are going to sink. So we want to keep our eyes looking at the bottom. And as we extend our fingertips into the water, we jumped into the footage a little early. I want to go back. Okay, so if you look at where the fingertips are entering the water, right in front of the shoulder, now let's take a look at the breath. I'm actually going to pause it right here. Now, if you look at Bob on the top half of the screen, you can see he's grabbing his breath, his elbow's high, but you can notice where his head position is. Half of his head is underneath the surface of the water. And actually, one of his goggles is underneath the surface of the water as well. And so as you're moving through the water, if you're trying to swim faster, if you're trying to optimize your breath technique, it's really important that you have this in mind. So you're looking at the bottom of the pool, and then as you rotate to the side, you're trying to maintain that body position. That's going to help you reduce drag, and it's going to make you swim more efficiently. So let's go ahead and continue watching this with an animation, and then we're going to apply it to a real human. So I'm going to show myself on the screen, and we're going to watch it in slow motion and see how the breathing mechanics actually play out in real life. So I'm going to go ahead and skip over to me swimming. So this is in normal speed, I believe, and that's a side profile. We're going to slow this down to about 15% real speed. So we're gonna start the stroke. Now look at the head position. I could actually keep my eyes looking down a little bit better, but you know, there's always room to improve. Now look at the rotation. We're turning our head to the side, and boom, one eye is above the water and one eye is underneath the water. And if you notice, unlike the animation, I do have a little bit of an up and down movement in the stroke. Now ideally we don't have that up and down movement, but like I said, the animation is perfect, and we as humans are trying to improve to get closer to that. Here it is again in slow motion, and if we pause right on this moment, you can see that I'm trying to maintain that body position. The arm is extended, one eye is in the water, one eye is out of the water. I could probably be even more leaning into the stroke, meaning my head is even more flat. It looks like there's a little bit of an angle. But again, we're trying to see where we can improve, and that's one area that everyone can improve, is trying to maintain that body position throughout the course of the stroke. We're actually going to look at, one more time, we'll look at the freestyle, and then we'll also look at breaststroke. And we'll see, because we get a lot of common questions about when do I breathe in breaststroke and even butterfly. So there it is in about 40% speed. So if we compare to the animations, you know, how close do we look in real life to the animation? You know, there are some things that we're doing pretty similar. If we think about the body position, how the eye is rotating, it looks pretty similar, but it's not going to be perfect. And the idea is we do certain drills in the water where we try and get closer to that level of technique. Now, I believe the next shot we're going to look at is breaststroke, because we get a common question about, you know, when do I breathe in breaststroke? So this is the full stroke. It's fast, so we're going to slow this down so you can really see what's happening. So I push off the wall, I go right into the stroke, pull, kick, glide. The breath happens with the pull. So if you look at that, pull, kick, and then glide. We're trying to be in streamline at the end of every single stroke. Sometimes swimmers are taking a breath too late. I see this all the time in breaststroke, trying to figure out, well, when do I breathe? Always think to in your head, pull, kick, glide. So there's a lot of mechanics that are involved with all the strokes, and in just a little bit we're going to talk about some different training that you can do out of the water to actually practice. But here, I paused it right here on the screen, and actually I'm gonna go back and make sure we pause it so we give this the attention that it deserves. So at this phase, I want to highlight something. So obviously I'm breathing, I'm sucking in that air, but if you think about it, this is actually the shortest part of the stroke, meaning the least amount of time is spent in this position because this is the most inefficient part of the stroke. Look at where my legs are. So I'm a pretty proficient swimmer, and my legs are still about half a meter underneath the surface of the water. So all of that is drag. And if you look at a more beginner swimmer, you know, even more of the legs are going to be underneath the water, and that causes you to swim slow. So if we want to swim faster, we have to reduce the amount of time that we spend in this position, which means we're going to get out of breath that much more quickly. And so it can be really challenging to try and improve your swimming when you feel like you're so out of breath all the time. Now, there's certainly things that we can do in training, and there's things that we can do in the pool, and there's things that we can do out of the pool. So in just a couple of seconds, I'm going to bring on two of our guests, and they bring a lot of experience, not only from a breath training perspective, but also a swimming perspective. And I've actually used their product called the AeroFit. I've used it, and I've been able to improve my my fitness level, my vital lung capacity using the product. I actually have some awesome footage so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So let me pull that onto the screen right now. But the AeroFit trainer is just this, you know, small device, and it's something that you can do synced with your smartphone. You do it every single day. And unlike a 2-hour swim workout that you need to train to improve these things, you know, for 5-10 minutes a day, you can do a tailored program to help you with your breath training and with your breath control. And you see me right there. It's kind of like a video game when you're testing yourself and you're focusing on different things that you can do out of the water. And yeah, so let's go ahead and pull on our guests. So I'm really excited to introduce the CEO of AeroFit. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on. There he is. Christian, welcome.
Thank you, Fares.
And I'm also going to bring a special guest that you might know, Sebastian. Let's bring him on. So, full disclosure here, what's the relation between you guys?
Hello.
Sebastian is my son.
Excellent. So we have a family affair here. So, Christian, you're the CEO of AeroFit. So just really quick, you know, what is your background? How did AeroFit start, and what is AeroFit?
Yes, my background is that I'm educated classical singer, but I always done a lot of sports. So the reason why we invented AeroFit was that we found a medical device, and we discovered that it was useful for singers, but eventually also for athletes. And Sebastian, he was our first guinea pig.
Awesome. So, Sebastian, I understand you're at UNC. You're a college swimmer. You've got a great background in swimming. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about how you grew up swimming and kind of what your favorite events are and where you focus now.
hmm Yeah, so I'm Sebastian. I'm a college swimmer at UNC or here in the US. I'm obviously also from Denmark as Christian is. I started swimming when I was 9 or 10 years old. I started out being not quite the best in my club, and then yeah, I advanced to actually be one of the very best in Denmark um, over time. And yeah, as Christian mentioned, I started training aerofit when I was around 16, and that was where I really started seeing some improvements. Yeah, so that's like my brief background here.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. So we're gonna ask you guys some questions now. We have them
And
coming in.
yeah, I swim.
Oh, go ahead. What events do you swim? We'll start there.
Oh yeah, there's a little delay here. I can feel. So I swim this. Yeah, I swim all the sprint.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's go ahead and get into some questions. First question here, Taylor asks, how often should I breathe in freestyle? I was told every 3 strokes, but so many people breathe every 2. Maybe I'll intro this, and then I'm curious, Sebastian, what you think about this. So, you have to be comfortable in the water. So, obviously breathing, once per length is not going to be enough. So breathing every 2 or every 3 strokes is normally the best. Breathing every 2 will give you rhythm. And if you look at a lot of the best swimmers in the world, in the in a race, especially at a 200 level or above, pretty much everyone is breathing every 2 strokes. If you're comfortable breathing every 3, bilateral breathing, that's good too because you get symmetry. But I'm curious, Sebastian, what do you do in your races and training, and what do you think?
I very much agree with what you say here. Um, I typically breathe every second, from 100 and above that. Actually, it's a little bit different, like on yards in terms of the 100 that compared to meters. Since it's a more like explosive race, so I don't have to breathe that much compared to meters. But I would think like for an everyday athlete, I would breathe every like third or so, just to get the symmetry in terms of like muscles and all that stuff. But yeah, typically the best swimmers breathe every second, just to get enough oxygen for the rest of their races. There's a few exceptions. For instance, the Hungarian star Christoph Milak that breathes every third. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Let's go to the next question here. So, Kaylee asks, do I need to improve my breath control for backstroke? So I would say yes. In every swimming stroke, every swimming discipline, there is a lot of benefit to having a better breath control. And a lot of this comes back to what I mentioned about comfort. So you want to feel comfortable in the water. And the more confident you are, the better your vital lung capacity, the better your breath control, the better you're going to be as a swimmer in every single stroke. And if you're competing in backstroke, having a great breath control will allow you to stay underwater longer when you push off the wall because that is the fastest part of the stroke. So, yeah, absolutely. I think for every stroke, it's very beneficial to do that. So let's get into a more technical question here. Paige asks, what's the best breathing approach for a 50 freestyle sprint? How do I practice holding my breath in a sprint? So I want to get all 3 of us will share our perspective on this. So I'll start from maybe the more like just hardcore swimming mechanics of this. So the best breathing approach is what you're able to do and maintain speed. So a lot of people can swim the 50 freestyle in 1 breath or 0 breaths or not that many breaths, but you have to swim really slow in order to do that. So if you're trying to sprint the 50 freestyle, you have to figure out, what is reasonable for you to do where you can maintain a high level of speed all the way through. So some people, it might be breathing, 3 times in the 50. Some people can do it 0. You might need to breathe 5 times in a 50. And eventually, the more you practice and the more you train both in the water and out of the water, the better you'll be able to decrease that number. Because if you remember at the beginning of the video, I shared how when you breathe, it's actually slowing you down because it's changing your body position. But breathing is necessary because if you don't breathe, it's not going to work. Like, you have to breathe at some point. You know, the elite swimmers can do the 50 freestyle in no breath, but most people are not going to do that. So if you're trying to improve, go from, you know, 5 breaths to 4 or 3 to 2, you need to practice in the water. So I'm gonna let Christian talk about how you can train to improve your vital lung capacity out of the water, and then I want to hear Sebastian's perspective on this as well. So Christian, how do we train out of the water to improve the breath control for like a 50?
Yeah, thank you very much, and I very much agree with you about your perspectives on how to scale up to be even better. If we are talking about how to improve your accessible vital lung capacity, how much air can you get in and out of your lungs, it's the flexibility training. And the flexibility training, of course, you can train it with an airfit. You cannot also train it without. It's easier with. And the idea is that you're actually are filling your lungs to the absolutely maximum, and empty your lungs to the maximum, to the minimum that is possible for you. And you can do that if you do some regular systematic training on it. Then you can actually discover that you can increase the accessible vital lung capacity, and you can measure that on airfit. Of course, you can measure that with spirometry and other devices as well. So that would be a very, very important part. The other part would be that you should train your respiratory muscle. So it's primarily the diaphragm. So it will be stronger and more efficient. And when the muscle is more efficient, it doesn't need so much oxygen in order to in normal usage. So that will require less oxygen.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree. And for everyone watching, Christian is the CEO of AeroFit, and he has a lot of experience from not only the perspective of, you know, athletics, but also all disciplines. And coming from, you know, classical music and being able to actually build a product that I myself has used, his son has used, you know, hundreds, thousands of athletes have used across multiple disciplines. It does work. So now I want to hear Sebastian's perspective on the question that Paige asked about, you know, basically how do we, you know, decrease the number of times we breathe in the 50 freestyle?
Yeah, so like the 50 yard freestyle is the very fastest race that we can ever swim. So we obviously want to eliminate drag. So we don't really have the time to breathe a lot if we do breathe. So we want to make sure that we can hold the breath. And I see two like different factors that we have to work on. We have to work on breath hold to kind of restrict, to kind of learn the body to swim fast without a lot of oxygen. But we also gotta teach the body how to get more flexible, so we can take in more volume of air. That's like the two most important factors I see for the 50 freestyle in terms of the breathing here. Yeah, well, like the 100 free, you would also focus on like the strength a little bit more, because the breathing pattern is more the restrictive factor for that race. I
Mm-hmm.
don't even see like a breathing pattern for the 50 free here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, and I think it goes back to your swimming level. So some people will be trying to do the 50 freestyle in meters or yards, doesn't really matter, in, you know, 1 breath or 2 or 0. But if you're just getting started, you might think, well, how is that even possible? There's no way I can swim fast and only take 1 breath. I'm going to die. Like, you know, it's not possible. So depending on the level that you're at, that's really what's going to determine how often you breathe. But if you remember, you know, just 5 minutes ago, we were talking about, you know, different breathing patterns, breathing every 2 or breathing every 3. You know, that's how you build a foundation, by getting comfortable swimming over a long period of time. You don't just, you know, hold your breath the whole time and then swim and expect improvement. That's not how it works. So you have to be comfortable breathing every 2, breathing every 3, training both in and out of the water. And then when you want to do something like a 50 freestyle, you have a foundation to build off of, and you start to decrease the number of breaths that you take. So definitely some important points there. So Bruno has a great question. I always have problems with the exhalation underwater. Do I need to exhale all of my air? Do you have any advice on this? So this is a great question that I get all the time. And so a lot of people, especially if they're new to swimming, you think you have to hold your breath while you swim. And that's not good because that only works for a very, very short period of time. What happens is you start to build up all this lactic acid basically if you're holding your breath and you're starting to get your heart rate up, and it's not efficient. So instead, if you think about it, if you go for a run and you hold your breath while running, it's going to be very difficult. You could do it for a short amount of time, but after about 5-10 seconds of running while you hold your breath, you're going to completely fall apart. So what you need to do is you need to get in a pattern of exhaling very gradually. And if you're a beginner, think about when you go underwater, like blowing bubbles, right? So you're humming. If you make the humming sound like and you're humming like a meditative state. So you go underwater, you're blowing bubbles, but you're not exhaling all of your air at the same time. And so as you get more comfortable swimming, you start to exhale on a gradual basis. And if you remember the video that I showed of me swimming where I'm breathing to the side every 2 strokes, it's a natural process. Like you should be able to do this forever. And the only way you can do this forever, not literally forever, but you should be able to swim 30 minutes continuously because you're gradually exhaling the air out. So that's a great question here. Do you guys have anything to add about the technique?
Yeah, definitely. One of my worst like technique mistakes, 1 year back or so, was that I was breathing out like too slowly, so it kind of messed up my whole swimming rhythm, including my body position. So I discovered that not only the inhalation is important in swimming, but also the exhalation, because like in the more fast-paced race, you have to exhale so quickly because your head is turning that fast as well. You have to exhale that quickly to get the right amount of air out before you put your head to the side and do the quick inhalation as well. So like
Mm-hmm.
I was too slow at breathing out, at exhaling there, so it kind of messed up my body rhythm. So I was like looking to the side, and when I kind of like spent too much time looking to the side, I like dropped my body position a lot
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
because like I spent too much time above the water, relatively, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a
I
great
think
point.
there's another element in this question that I think is very interesting. And I do not claim to have the right answer on it, but I know that different swimming experts having different takes on it. And that is the part of, do I need to exhale all my air? And as I heard, because I'm not a swimmer, I just help them. There's a big difference between different coaches in how much of the air. Of course, you should exhale, right? There's no doubt about that. But how much of your air you should exhale? That is, I think, a very very good question, because if you exhale too much, you will sink, right? And if you exhale too little, you don't have the proper gas exchange.
Mm-hmm.
What is your take on that, Fares?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely,
I
definitely.
I think a lot.
Um,
Oh, go ahead.
Another thing that I've also learned, like, yeah, doing like all my time in the pool, is that like another effective tool to not mess up the breathing, like above the surface, is to breathe out through the nose under the water. And obviously, like the nose is more restrictive than the mouth, so you would require some more exhalation power there, to kind of not like overlap in terms of like the inhalation and the exhalations, because it's so important only to do the inhalation above the surface and not also do the exhalation there, because if you do so, you will take too much time yeah, breathing in on top of the water. So that's also like another limiting factor there, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Gordon says, thanks so much. Great information, and I'm a beginner swimmer, so this is great. Awesome. So happy to help. And, I know the thousands of people that will watch this after the live will benefit as well. So that's great. So let's do a few more questions, and we'll do it on speed round, and we'll try and get a perspective on each of them. So here's a good one. Do you have any advice for when you are flip turning and the water gets in your nose? Ooh, okay, so we'll each get like 15 seconds on this. So my perspective, a lot of this has to do with the speed at which you're going through the turn. So sometimes people go into the turn and it's too slow. The faster you go into the turn, the faster you come out of it. So the amount of blowing out your nose you have to do isn't as much if you're going through the rotation faster. So practicing somersaults and things like that. We have a great video I did. It's 5 steps to doing a flip turn. So make sure you go to YouTube, just type in 5 steps flip turn MySwimPro. You'll see the video. It's great. What do you guys think?
That's you, Sebastian.
So I think like mostly the same, obviously. But I also think like if you are a little bit more like of a slow turner initially, before you obviously go ahead and watch the video, you should try to emphasize like holding the tension in your diaphragm, so you don't like take in air, but you make sure that you push out a little bit of air of your nose. That's like my best take on it. Like many swimmers also blow out a little bit of air in their backstroke, dolphin kicks, if they don't use a nose clip. So that's kind of similar, I think.
Yep. Since we're on that question, so what do you think about nose plugs?
Yeah, so we are like almost kind of forced to do it in backstroke over here because we can gain some more yardage underwater if we make sure not to to breathe out in our dolphin kicks like under the water. So that's like the most important thing. Like I would only use it for backstroke. I only use it for backstroke because I feel like it kind of restricts my breathing a little bit, but it's definitely worth it for me in backstroke if I want to make sure to do some longer kickouts, which, as you said earlier, is the fastest complement of the backstroke.
Yeah, and I think even with, and maybe we'll wrap up, we'll do one more question, but I think this is an important note. Even if you have a nose clip and you're able to basically maintain more oxygen because you're not letting anything out, if you have a better vital lung capacity and you have more capacity in general and breath control, it's going to make it that much more powerful. So if you have, if you have 2 swimmers and they're, they both with the nose plug are kind of similar, but one of them has better capacity. Really, with the nose plug and without the nose plug, they're going to be better because they have better capacity. And that's why I'm happy to have Aerofit with us. So I guess, Christian, do you have any final words on that?
Yes, actually, I have one thing about the nose plug because when you train with Airfit, we don't say that you should use a nose plug, even though it would actually be easier to do the training. But if you don't use a nose plug, you will actually at the same time train your palate, the soft palate, the part that separates the nose and the mouth part. And if you train that, that's a muscle part, right? So you will actually get the strength that will prevent you from getting more air in because you have that greater power. But also, as Sebastian said, if you have the tension in the diaphragm as well, then you're much better off. But of course, if you need a quick fix, a nose block can help you. But I think if you train without it, it's better for you.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So we have the final question, and we're going to answer this in a few different ways. So, but first of all, Christian, Sebastian, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your time. So let's go ahead and answer this final question. But before we do, I don't want to forget, you guys can pick up an Aerofit breathing trainer for 15% off with this link down below in the description. It's the first pinned comment. So make sure you guys check it out. Awesome product. I've used it. It's definitely something that you should check out. I know you guys are going to love it. So let's go ahead and get back to that question. Make sure you check out that pinned comment. The question was about technique. So I want to hear both of you guys, if you have any perspective. And then I'm going to play some video footage showing myself swimming again so we can put some context to this question. So, yeah, Christian, Sebastian, what do we think?
It's Sebastian. Who's the clever guy here?
Yeah, this is a very technical question. It really depends from swimmer to swimmer. It also depends on if you're a swimmer that does a catch up or if you're more like kayakish stroke. But yeah, it really depends. Like I would say like it's in the combination of when you breathe out, like in my perspective, through your nose. Some breathe out through the mouth under the water. I prefer to do it with the nose. But like while you do that, especially for the more fast-paced race, I would do it like during the exhalation. But just make sure that you are ready to pick up the powerful inhalation that you have to do above the surface when you roll to the side.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So, with that being said, thanks guys for joining. And now I'm going to play some footage to show this topic, and we'll go back to the technique. Once again, guys, if you want to check out AeroFit, pinned comment down below, and let us know what questions you guys have. So, both you guys, thanks for your time, and let's go ahead and play this footage.
Pleasure.
All right, so we have some swimming going on. That's breaststroke. Let's cut to freestyle. So we're talking about the timing of the exhalation. If you see, there's bubbles coming out of my nose. So there's a continuous stream, and you have to have that final burst to get that water out of your nose, get your breath, and then come back down. We're actually going to pause this the next time we see it. But it's really important to, keep things simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Sometimes we get in a pattern of just overcomplicating what we're doing. And the reality is it's not as complicated as we make it. So one arm is extended, one eye is in the water, our mouth is open, so we're catching the breath, we're inhaling through our mouth. And then as we rotate back down, then our mouth closes and we start to exhale through our nose. And it's a very gradual exhalation. You should see the bubbles coming out of my nose right there, but it's not all of my oxygen coming out at the same time, right? So let's watch it one more time. Here it is. And you look at the bubbles coming out of my nose. It's very gradual. And yeah, we're just trying to swim smooth. When we look at the animation, same thing. Keep it simple. Keep one eye in the water, one eye out of the water. Focus on that body position and head position. And if you want to figure out how to do this training in the pool, of course, you can check out the MySwimPro app, available for iPhone and Android. You can get a personalized training program. It's designed for you. The intervals are unique to your swimming speed and your level. We have training plans depending on your goal, sync with your Apple Watch or your Garmin smartwatch, and we do all the strokes training. If you want to take your training to the next level out of the water, of course, you can check out the AeroFit trainer, and that will help you train and improve your vital lung capacity, your breath control, your capacity, your diaphragmatic strength and flexibility. You can do that out of the water, so make sure you check out the pinned comment down below. As always, if you enjoyed the content, make sure you give it a like. Let us know what you think down below in the comments, and I wish you guys the best and happy swimming. We'll see you at the next video.